Hi friends, welcome to the channel. I'm Olivia, and if you've never seen my face before, you can consider me your fragrance fairy godmother. So when I was thinking about this week's video and what I wanted to do, I was thinking to myself, if someone is just starting their fragrance journey, what is a good place that they can check out that is not going to cost an arm and a leg, that is readily available and has some fragrances on display so that way you can smell around and see what you like. And I feel like over the years, Target has really upped its game when it comes to affordable yet really good quality fragrances. So for today's video, we're going to be talking about some fragrances that are available at Target. So that goes to say that all of these fragrances are going to be super affordable as well. The only brand I was not able to pick up is called French because they didn't have a little discovery kit. So I would have had to buy all of the sprays. But if you guys are interested in that, I'd be happy to do that. Just drop me a little line down below. If you're into affordable fragrances and you love Target, grab yourself a little drink, a little snack, and settle in because we're here today to talk about affordable perfumes. So let's start off with a brand that a lot of people have been talking about lately, and that is Finery. So Finery is a newer house and they are inspired fragrances, meaning that they are dupes. But the only thing that I don't care for is they don't say what they're supposed to be dupes or inspirations of. So you're really just left to guess. So I'll fill you in as to what I think they're supposed to be dupes of and let you know if they're anything similar. So these do come in an eau de parfum concentration if you're looking for something a little bit more long lasting, but if you are on a little bit smaller of a budget, they do have body mists, but I found with the ones I tried, they didn't last that long. So if you can save and try to get the eau de parfum, I think that's a better choice. So let's start off with Magnetic Candy. So this is going to start off with pomelo. So you are going to get a super juicy, bright citrus in the beginning, but then it goes very, very candy sweet with some cotton candy, followed by some violet. So you're getting a little bit of powderiness, you're getting a candy, and you are also getting a really tangy citrus. To me, this is kind of the halfway point between a sweet, juicy, gourmand candy fragrance and also smelling a little bit like a shampoo. So to some people, this is going to smell a little bit more on the synthetic side. And while I do see that, I still enjoy it because it almost has that plasticky kind of toy-like scent, which is fun and nostalgic. Kind of reminds me of Barbies. A lot of people think that this is supposed to be a dupe of Sundays by Byredo. I do not think that this is a dupe. I do not think that this is similar. If this is going to be similar to something, it may be slightly similar to Aqualina Pink Sugar, but even then, this is way more citrusy. So if you like something super bright and juicy and fun, maybe a little bit young smelling and would be good for summer, I think you'd like Magnetic Candy. Next is Sunforia. So this is another summertime fragrance. This is going to give you a very sunscreen, but bougie sunscreen sort of feel. But this is very white floral dominant. So you have Manoi and you have orange flower. And this does not have coconut in it. So a lot of tropical fragrances end up having a really strong coconut, which I've noticed is a little bit polarizing. People either love coconut or they hate coconut. So if you like a tropical scent, but you don't like coconut, this is a safe bet. If you want to smell like you put on some tanning oil, you're at the beach in the Bahamas, this is definitely going to give you that sort of vibe. And this one I believe is supposed to be a dupe of Soleil Blanc by Tom Ford. This is the much more simplified version. I find this to be, once again, a little bit younger, a little bit more linear, but I found that the lasting power on this is surprisingly pretty good for the price. Because you're talking about Tom Ford fragrances that are $350, and this is under $30. So obviously they're not going to smell exactly alike, but this, pretty good for the money. And for the next ones I'm talking about, I don't have a full-size bottle. I just bought one of these little discovery sets to smell along with you. So let's start with Without a Trace. So a lot of people say that this one is supposed to be a dupe of Missing Person by Fleur, and I am here to tell you that it is extremely similar. You're getting that clean skin kind of warmth smell, and I have had a lot of people tell me that they feel like Missing Person, or perhaps Without a Trace, smell like old lady. I've heard some crazy things. Old lady, cigarettes. I don't know what cigarette smoking old lady you guys are smelling, but I love this scent. It is the perfect everyday scent. It's clean, it's fresh, it's fluffy, but it has a little bit of sensual warmth to it. It's just a good white musk fragrance. And I personally feel that these ones are similar enough that you could in fact opt for this one and save a little bit of coin. Now, I cannot speak to the longevity of this one, but I've noticed with my Missing Person, it's not that it's not long lasting, it just becomes a very intimate scent very quickly. So I can still smell it on myself, but it will be much more of a close bubble. You'd have to go in for a hug to smell it. But for the purposes that I use that fragrance, or this fragrance, I like that because I'm wearing it to work where I'm a hairdresser and I don't want to be assaulting someone with my fragrance. So if you like Missing Person without a trace, very similar. And next is Pistachio Please. So I think by the name and the color of the bottle, a lot of people thought that this was going to smell like Yum Pistachio Gelato by Kayali. But to me, this does not smell like Yum whatsoever, because in Yum, you are getting something that is powdery, you are getting a cotton candy, you are getting something much more fluffy, but in this is more of a dense, caramel sweet sort of fragrance, so it smells a lot more similar to Sol de Janeiro. Most definitely, this is a dupe of Cheirosa 62. Once again, they are very similar, and I think if you put them side by side, nose to nose, you'd be able to smell slight differences, but in the air, this one and the Missing Person one, very good dupes. So if you like a sweet caramel, a salted pistachio, but it doesn't feel too heavy or sickeningly sweet and still would be good for summertime, a summertime gourmand, I think you would really like this one. And next is Sweet on the Outside. And this one is rumored to be a dupe of Eilish by Billie Eilish. And once again, the girlies were right on this one. If you like Eilish, you will love this fragrance. This is a vanilla fragrance with a little bit of nuance. It has this toasted quality, it has a warm woody quality, while also boasting this unsweetened cacao powderiness. This is for the vanilla lovers that don't want something that is cake batter and super duper sweet, but rather something that has a little bit of density, some woodiness, and a little bit of androgyny. This feels like an androgynous vanilla. And although I do like this one, at one point I had a full bottle of this and I felt like the longevity was not very good. Even though these notes are pretty dense, I felt like in a couple hours it was gone. So if you like Eilish or you like Sweet on the Outside, I would suggest looking for this one right here. This one lasts an eternity. This lasts longer than Eilish, which once again, I used to have, but it wasn't really my cup of tea, if I'm being honest. Eilish had something that was a little bit synthetic in a way that I didn't like, that had almost a burnt plastic smell to it that I did not find in this one. So I found that this was also so similar to Eilish, but just worked better on my body chemistry. And unfortunately, because this one went viral, this one's now a little bit more expensive. It used to be a little bit more affordable, so you could save a little coin, but if you're a diehard for Eilish and you want something that's super long lasting and doesn't have the plasticky smell, try to save up and get this one. And next is Not Another Cherry. So to the surprise of absolutely no one, this is supposed to be a dupe of Tom Ford's Lost Cherry. And while I can see the similarities, this one to me smells like the old formulation back in the day of Jergens Cherry Almond Body Lotion. I see what this one is going for, but the cherry in this comes off very syrupy sweet, almost like Robitussin. Not even Robitussin, this has a candied scent that makes it smell like throat lozenges. So although some of these are pretty spot on, I find this one to smell quite cheap. But if you want a dupe for Tom Ford Lost Cherry, I would check out Orena Fragrances because I also have their body creams and their body oils, and they are super duper long lasting, and not even Tom Ford can claim that because Lost Cherry only lasts about 5 hours on my skin. And for that price tag, I'm gonna need more than that, honey. She put the Lost in Lost Cherry. And lastly is the New Rouge. And this one is supposed to be a dupe of Baccarat Rouge 540. Now honestly, I compliment people on Baccarat Rouge in public all the time. I think it smells great. I just think a lot of people like it, therefore a lot of people love to hate it. If you haven't tried that fragrance, it is a very difficult one to describe because it creates this little ozone around you, but it's difficult to pinpoint every single note. There's a sheer bit of jasmine, there's a saffron that gives it this kind of spiced leather touch, but don't think of like a hardcore car leather, think of something very delicate. And I would give this one an 8 out of 10. It's very close, but there is a little bit of sharpness on the skin, almost like a pepperiness in this one that I personally do not get in the original. But once again, that is an incredibly expensive fragrance, so if you were obsessed with the scent of it, this would be a good alternative. But if you're willing to spend just a little bit more money, I have a better alternative that is a spot-on dupe that I've noticed that people do not go anosmic to. And that is Amber Rouge by Orientica. Now I know a lot of people have talked about this fragrance, but this truly deserves some shine because the packaging that this even comes in this beautiful case that you could turn into a jewelry box. And then this packaging, you do not need much of this fragrance. They are very strong projecting, and this is a perfect dupe to Baccarat Rouge. But if I were to suggest just one out of all the Finery fragrances to you, I would go with Pistachio Please. It's creamy and sweet, but you could still use it all year round, and I think it's a really, really well done fragrance that doesn't have any semblance of an artificial sort of undertone. And they do have some other fragrances available at Target from Finery, but for the sake of time, in this video not being crazy long, I'm gonna limit it to there. So if you've tried some Finery fragrances and there's one you absolutely love that I didn't talk about in this video, comment it down below so that way I can pick it up. Next brand that we're going to talk about is Mix Bar. So let's start with Sparkling Hibiscus. This is such a refreshing summer scent. I love this scent. It is juicy and citrusy in the beginning with notes of bergamot and a little bit of champagne that really give it this effervescent, sparkly sort of feel. And it has the note of hibiscus, so it almost smells like if you were to mix a really fruity, juicy rosé with Jamaica. But what I will say about this one is it is kind of reminiscent of something that you would get at Bath & Body Works. So if you like those kind of young, juicy, fruity, a little bit simple fragrances, but you want something that's more of an eau de parfum concentration and you really like Bath & Body Works, Sparkling Hibiscus, highly recommend. I love this one. And the next is Whipped Almond. Oh my god, this one is top of my list. I honestly might go pick this up tomorrow because this is a creamy, dreamy sandalwood and almond fragrance. It's got this strong lactonic feel while having a warm woody base and a little bit of powderiness. So this one is not super sweet, but rather comes off very creamy, fluffy, and whipped, just as the name suggests. Once again, to me, this is going to fall into the Bath & Body Works category because at one point they had a scent called Almond Blossom, and this is very, very similar. But the problem with Bath & Body Works is that they come out with a fragrance, and we all love it, and then they discontinue it and they never bring it back. So if you want something that smells almost edible, almost gourmand, but is not sickeningly sweet and has more of a fluffy, powdery, semi-sweet almond along with a milkiness, you would love this one. And next is Cloud Musk. This is going to be for those of you who really like the clean girl aesthetic, the minimalistic aesthetic, something that is not going to smell overwhelming or too perfumey, but rather something that will be just a nice adornment on your outfit, but not speak for you. This is also warm and fluffy, but think of it as a little bit more earthy and definitely not in the edible category. And there's the note of cypress in here that can sometimes come off very green and pine-like, but in this case is giving a little bit of pepperiness. This feels like a very subdued version of You by Glossier. This is one of those your skin but better fragrances, but once again, this is a fragrance that I had a full-size bottle of, and I noticed that it just doesn't really last on me. If you don't mind topping up every 2 to 3 hours, it is an inexpensive fragrance, so you can do that, but I personally would just go for Glossier You, which is a little bit longer lasting. And next is Coconut Palm. So this is a coconut fragrance, but this is not going to be a super sweet or creamy coconut, but rather more of a dry, husky, almost woody coconut. Uniquely, there is also a little bit bit of saltiness. So it kind of smells like a coconut that's fallen directly from the tree into the sand that has almost a gritty, husky, mineral saltiness to it. And I was really shocked because this to me is super reminiscent of Dirty Coconut by Heretic, which I've talked about on this channel many times because I find it to be a very unique coconut. Oftentimes coconut is super duper sweet, super duper milky, almost candied and synthetic, but this one takes it in a very different direction. It is not sunscreeny and comes off much more woody. And lastly is vanilla bourbon. And once again, this is going to be a vanilla for people who don't really care for super duper sweet vanillas. This has a really prominent black pepper in the beginning that feels very coarsely ground and a little bit spiced. And then in the base, you are getting a sandalwood and an amber, so this definitely has a dense, rich quality to it. This is the halfway point between Vanilla Woods by the Seven Virtues and Kayali's Vanilla. Not as sweet as the Kayali fragrance that's a little bit more brown sugar dominant, but not quite as smoky as Vanilla Woods. I think it's a really solid option for those of you who want something that's vanilla that's a little bit more interesting. If you're only going to invest in a couple of the mix bar fragrances, strictly going off the more unique scents, I would go with coconut palm and vanilla bourbon. But if you're looking for something that's good for spring and summer, sparkling hibiscus. It is so juicy, it is so refreshing, and it's sweet, but it's a little bit floral, and it's just delicious. But personally on my list is whipped almond. Next up is Good Chemistry. And first is Coffee Cloud. Now it's funny to me that this is called Coffee Cloud because this smells similar to Cloud by Ariana Grande. I find this one to be a little bit more creamy and a little bit more lactonic and doesn't head towards the Baccarat Rouge side as much. And I'm happy to report that a lot of people have said that Cloud has a very burnt plastic sort of smell like you would find in Aqualina Pink Sugar, but this one does not have a burnt scent to it at all. This is fluffy, sweet, inoffensive, and would be good for every day. And this is one of the rare cases that I feel that the notes that are listed for this smell nothing like what this smells like. Now that I'm smelling it again, this smells like the halfway point between Skylar's Vanilla Sky, which has a little bit of that cappuccino note, and Cloud by Ariana Grande. So sweet, fluffy, vanillic, and delicious. Very inoffensive. This would be a good place to start for those of you who don't really know what you're looking for in a fragrance because I think a lot of people would like this. And next is Queen Bee. This fragrance is going to be very fresh, aquatic, and floral, but not floral in the way that is going to be mature smelling and a little bit heavy, but this smells like an ocean breeze with a lot of florals kind of rolling on the wind. It has peony, which tends to be a very sheer, delicate floral scent that doesn't bother a whole lot of people. And I've heard a lot of people say that this smells like Burberry Her EDT, and I'm here to tell you, maybe a little on the dry down, but in Burberry Her EDT, you get a really strong pear and strawberry. So this doesn't really have a fruity opening whatsoever. It's more of the sheer and delicate summery florals with a little bit of an amber dry down, but this is definitely not a dupe to Burberry Her EDT. And next is a newer release from the house called Unknown Legend. Now this one takes it in a very different direction because I would deem this one much more unisex. In the beginning, you're getting a lot of eucalyptus that's going to feel very spa-like, as if you left a Burke Williams. You have a little bit of violet leaf that gives it almost this dewy, grassy, kind of crunchy feel. And then in the base, you have that very dry, almost herbal smelling sandalwood, similar to like what you would get in a Santal 33, but I don't want you to think of this as a Santal 33 dupe whatsoever because this one is much more sheer, almost gives a cucumbery sort of touch. To me, this scent is very spa-like. So imagine you just walked out of the sauna where you can smell the heat from the wood, but it smells very dry at the same time. And then you are getting a massage with some eucalyptus oil and they put some cold cucumber slices over your eyes. This would be really good for those of you who want something that's very fresh and very uplifting, but you don't really like floral and you don't really like sweet. So I suppose that you could consider this Santal 33's baby sister. It's much more delicate. And next is Pink Palm. This is another case in which I feel like the notes that are listed do not reflect what this smells like at all. People say that this is green and floral and vanilla, but I'm getting something very juicy and very fruity in the beginning. And then as this dries down and you get past that juiciness, you do start to get a magnolia. This is really nice and really refreshing. It just simply is not what I was expecting from the notes. And lastly is Cocoa Blush. This is a coconut, pineapple, and driftwood, but I don't want you to think of a concentrated pineapple juice because this is not as tangy and mouth-watering and super sweet, but rather kind of smells like if you were to have a bubbly water that has the essence of that, but it's very faint. Although the fruits add just a little bit of sparkle and sweetness, the driftwood is the main player in this. And surprisingly, I think that this one could actually be considered a little bit more unisex as well. And lastly, we have Pacifica. Now, a few of these I've had on this channel many times, so I'll breeze through these first ones, but we got a few new ones that I wanted to introduce. Let's start off with Sunrise Moon. Now, this is a peach fragrance, and this quite literally smells like peach rings. You're getting the crystalline sugar, but you are getting that slightly artificially peach candy sort of feel. Because of that slightly artificial feel, this also gives peach rings and Barbie doll head, which I quite like. I think it's very young and I think it's very playful and cute. But one thing that I'll caution is that I feel like the bottles go bad very quickly, because as I'm smelling my bottle, this is smelling quite a bit different from when I first purchased it. So unfortunately, this might be on its way out. Next is Flower Moon. Now this is also a peach fragrance, but to me, this is much more white floral dominant. You have a very strong jasmine that still feels very fresh. It doesn't feel too natural where it goes indolic and heavy. This is a delicate jasmine water sweetened with a little bit of peach and a light touch of vanilla. And between the two of them, this one is surprisingly sophisticated for what you're paying for, so I think this one is a very good buy. Next is Hawaiian Ruby Guava. Similar to Sparkling Hibiscus from Mix Bar, this one has that delectable, juicy, mouth-watering summer sort of feel. It really does smell like you took a fresh guava and cut it in half and drizzled it with lemon juice. And then softly as a supporting note, you're getting a little bit of coconut, but I find sometimes coconut takes over the composition of fragrances, and surprisingly, this one is very delicate. It just helps to bolster the juicy tanginess of a bright pink guava. And if you want to smell like a juicy, sparkling summertime fruit salad, mix these two. And next is French Lilac. This is quite simply a lilac fragrance, but it is a very natural smelling lilac, as if you just shoved your face in a lilac bush. It is powdery, it is slightly sweet, but it has a little bit of crunchy green floral aspect, a little bit of an aquatic touch. I personally adore a lilac, and I have a lot of nostalgic memories wrapped up in it. This is just a body mist, but it is decently long-lasting. One of the most long-lasting body mists that I've tried. And now let's move on to their brand new releases, starting with Beach Day. Now, when I saw that this was named Beach Day, I thought that this was going to be coconut, sunscreeny, citrusy, something super bright, but oddly enough, this one does smell kind of like Santal 33. Even more than Santal 33, this smells almost exactly like Bois de Balancourt by Maison Louis Marie. You're getting something a little bit spiced in the beginning, coming from some cardamom, a little bit of nutmeg, and you do get quite a bit of powderiness coming from some iris and orris. But this definitely has that signature Santal sandalwood and a little bit of leathery muskiness in the base. Definitely not what I was expecting for a beach day, although it is a nice, fresh, woody fragrance. So if you like Bois de Balancourt, you would love this. Next is Passion Fruit. I thought by the name that this was going to be just a passion fruit fragrance, but this is chock full of delicious fruits. You have a little bit of juicy pineapple, you have some watermelon, but then imagine you grated some fresh ginger and squeezed some lemon all over top of that. So it's juicy and tart and delicious. Definitely another mouth-watering fragrance. But what I like about this one is there's a little bit more nuance. I think that they really stepped up their game with this new collection, because as it dries down, you get a nice muskiness, you get just a little bit of fresh florals popping through, and a little bit of woodiness. So this starts off juicy and fruity and tangy and delicious, but it developed a little bit of character over time. I doubted her, but she's pretty good. But we're going to end off with the one that I was most impressed with out of all of the fragrances that I talked about today, and that is the brand new Montana Sky. This is honestly a fragrance that you could repackage in a Byredo or an Aesop bottle, and people would not know the difference. This does not smell like an affordable fragrance from Target. This smells expensive. This one blew my socks off. So in the beginning, you are going to get a lot of fresh spiciness. So you have some cumin, you have some black pepper, a little bit of sage, giving it an herbal touch. But then you're getting a little bit of light resinous sweetness coming from some olibanum, and then a dry earthiness coming from some cedar and some vetiver. It's green, fresh, herbal, spicy, and truly smells like a Byredo fragrance. It is so good. So if you're going to take my recommendation from any of the fragrances, even if you're just at Target and you want to smell them, try this one on skin. Montana Sky, they really popped off with this one. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I wanted to go over some fragrances that are not only affordable, but they're just readily available. Sometimes you might get invited to a last minute event and you're not wearing any fragrance, and you might just want to pop by Target and grab a little something something. So hopefully there's something on this list that sounds appealing to you. I don't know if it's just me, but I am really in the mood for some juicy fruity fragrances because I think I'm just in the mood for summer. I'm completely bypassing spring fragrances and I want to go directly to beach day. So if there's any fragrances that I missed that are from Target that you guys love and you swear by and they are affordable staples, make sure you comment it down below and maybe I'll have to do a little check-in, a little part 2. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next Saturday, 10 a.m. PST. And take care of yourselves, my friends.